Welcome back to Echoes of Ihsan podcast, listeners. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive into the fundamental aspects of Imam al-Ghazali's thought.
Ooh, exciting.
And to help us explore his ideas,
Mm-hmm.
we'll be using some fundamental aspects of Imam Ghazali's thought, a 1946 book
Okay.
by the scholar M. Umaruddin.
Interesting.
Now, it's not just a straightforward biography.
Okay.
Umaruddin meticulously gathered all these research papers and insights from various other scholars to present a really comprehensive view of Ghazali's intellectual journey
I see.
and his philosophical framework.
So we're looking at Ghazali
Right.
through the lens of kind of like contemporary scholarship.
Yeah, it's like having a backstage pass to the world of Ghazali scholarship.
I like that.
And speaking of remarkable,
Yeah.
Ghazali's life story itself is quite the journey. He was born in 1058 AD
Okay.
in Dusis, Persia, and was recognized as a brilliant scholar from a very young age.
Imagine that. Appointed to the prestigious Nizamiya Academy in Baghdad at an incredibly young age, an honor practically unheard of at the time, this placed him at the very heart of Islamic intellectual life, surrounded by the leading thinkers and scholars of his era.
It's like being like a rising star in Silicon Valley today, recruited to lead a cutting-edge tech company before even hitting 30.
Yeah, I see that.
But this meteoric rise and immersion in the world of knowledge and logic led Ghazali to a deep spiritual crisis.
I can imagine
Yeah.
he achieves the pinnacle of academic success, surrounded by brilliant minds, and yet he begins to question the very nature of knowledge and truth.
Right, like what is it all for, kind of a thing.
Right. What he had believed to be solid ground suddenly felt shaky. This realization that simply mastering logic and accumulating information doesn't necessarily lead to a true understanding
Yeah.
of the human condition or the nature of reality.
So it's like reaching the top of the mountain.
Yes.
Only to discover the view from there is not what you expected.
Exactly.
It makes you rethink the entire climb. So what does Ghazali do? He doesn't just stay stuck in this state of existential angst.
Right.
He embarks on a decade-long journey
Wow.
of introspection and study, seeking answers to the fundamental questions that are tormenting him.
Fascinating.
And he didn't limit himself to just one single school of thought.
Oh, okay.
He dove headfirst into various intellectual and spiritual traditions, studying philosophy, like the works of Aristotle, other Greek thinkers.
It's interesting.
And then he delves deeper into Islamic theology, different interpretations of the Quran and Hadith. And then he even spent significant time with Sufi mystics,
Okay.
seeking that experiential knowledge through practices like meditation and contemplation.
So it's like he was on this grand intellectual and spiritual tour, sampling the different flavors of knowledge and wisdom from various cultures and traditions.
Exactly.
I mean, it speaks to his incredible intellectual curiosity and his willingness to challenge his own preconceived notions.
Absolutely. And thankfully, he documented this whole journey, this transformative journey,
Oh.
in his autobiography, Deliverer from Error, which,
It's not just a personal account, it's like a window into the intellectual landscape of the 11th century.
wow.
He meticulously lays out his thought process, his doubts, his discoveries, the internal debates that he had as he navigated these different schools of thought.
Wow.
He gives vivid descriptions of his encounters with scholars and his struggles with certain concepts.
It's like we have this real-time deep dive into the mind of one of history's most influential thinkers.
It really is.
So after years of this, immersing himself in all these diverse
Yeah.
intellectual and spiritual traditions, what was his kind of ultimate conclusion?
Well, what he concluded was that the Sufis, with their emphasis on experiential knowledge, were the true seekers of truth. They weren't just reading about God.
Right.
They were striving to experience the divine directly
Yeah.
through spiritual practices and a purification of the heart.
So it's not an either.
Right.
It's not saying intellectual knowledge is useless.
Exactly.
But rather it's incomplete without the grounding of spiritual experience
Exactly.
and the purification of one's inner being.
Yeah, this integration of reason and intuition, of intellectual rigor and spiritual insight is the foundation of Ghazali's approach to knowledge.
And this approach is particularly evident in how he tackles the question of morality.
Oh, okay.
He wasn't satisfied with these dry, abstract kind of ethical systems that were prevalent at the time
Right.
because he found them too detached from like the lived reality.
Yeah, it's like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
Exactly.
Trying to impose this rigid set of rules without considering the messiness and contradictions inherent in being human.
So Ghazali insisted that any ethical system, to be truly effective, must be grounded in a solid understanding of human psychology.
Yeah, like the ancient thinkers, like Socrates, who believed that knowing thyself is the key to virtue.
Right. So how does Ghazali approach this psychological understanding of morality? How does he untangle the complexity of the human self?
Well, he starts by critiquing the popular philosophies of his time, particularly Epicureanism and hedonism,
Okay.
arguing that they offer an incomplete, even simplistic, view of human nature.
Right. Like they're only looking at one note in the entire symphony.
Exactly. They fail to grasp the inner struggle, the interplay of reason and desire that really makes us who we are.
So to kind of address this complexity, he delves deep into the concept of the nafs, the Arabic word for self.
Mm.
And he meticulously analyzes these various states of the nafs, classifying them based on their dominant characteristics
Okay.
and their influence on our moral choices.
Okay.
He paints this vivid picture of the self as a battleground, a site of constant struggle
Ah.
between our higher aspirations and our baser instincts.
So hold on, we need to unpack this idea of the nafs because
Yeah.
it's so central to his thought, right?
Right.
He doesn't just talk about the self in a general sense. It's a very specific understanding of what constitutes the self and how it operates.
I mean, it sounds a bit like Freud's concept of the id, ego, and superego.
It's an interesting connection. I mean, there are certainly differences, but both Ghazali and Freud grappled with this idea
Right.
that the self is multifaceted. It's a site of internal conflict between competing desires and impulses.
But Ghazali goes even further, linking the inner struggle of the nafs to a cosmic battle
Yes.
between good and evil.
Right.
Wait, hold on. What do you mean by cosmic battle?
Well, Ghazali believed that the human being is like a microcosm of the universe,
Okay.
a reflection of a larger cosmic order. And within each of us, he argued, is this constant interplay of forces, angelic and satanic,
Wow.
urging us towards either righteousness or corruption.
So our everyday choices aren't just about choosing right from wrong in this mundane sense.
Right.
Like we're participating in this grand cosmic battle,
Exactly.
aligning ourselves with the forces of good and resisting the pull of evil.
It really adds a layer of depth and urgency to our everyday actions.
Says,
And it's within this context of cosmic struggle that Ghazali's ideas about knowledge and love become really important.
because for Ghazali, true knowledge isn't just about gathering information.
Yeah.
It's intimately connected to love, and specifically the love of God.
He challenges the theologians of his time who rejected the very possibility of love between God and humans.
Oh, wow.
You know, they argued, based on their interpretations of Scripture, that the vast difference in nature between the Creator and the created makes such a relationship impossible. But Ghazali disagrees, arguing that true knowledge of God inevitably leads to love for him.
So, like, you can't truly understand something without developing some affection for it.
Precisely. And it's not just some abstract emotion, it's a transformative force. He argues that true happiness, true fulfillment, lies in experiencing this divine love.
So knowledge without love is like a body without a soul. It's empty.
Exactly. He illustrates this concept of divine love through this powerful analogy, ascending a staircase. Each step represents a level of knowledge and affection, a gradual deepening of understanding and connection, ultimately leading to this state of union with the beloved, with God.
I like that. That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
It's not just about accumulating information. It's about a journey of the heart,
It is.
a continuous ascent towards greater intimacy with the divine.
Beautifully put.
And this journey is fueled by love, right?
Absolutely.
It compels us to seek knowledge, to refine ourselves,
Yes.
to strive for that closeness to God.
He's saying that love is the essence of religion,
Yeah.
the motivating force behind all social and moral virtues.
So it challenges a lot of the legalistic interpretations of Islam prevalent at the time.
It does. It's not enough to simply follow the rules.
Right.
You have to be motivated by love to truly embody the spirit of the faith.
It's like moving beyond the letter of the law and embracing the spirit of the law.
Exactly.
It's about cultivating a heart that yearns for God and strives to manifest that love in our everyday actions. But how does he reconcile this with his understanding of reality? Because he draws a very clear distinction between the seen world and the unseen world.
Absolutely.
Wow.
He believed that the physical world, the world we perceive with our senses, is merely a symbol, a pointer to a transcendental reality that lies beyond.
So we got to look beyond the surface
Yes.
to delve deeper into these mysteries of existence.
He's saying that our senses provide us with a limited perspective, a sort of filtered version of reality.
Right.
To truly understand the nature of existence, we need to cultivate the capacity to perceive what lies beyond the realm of the senses, the realm of the unseen.
How do we do that?
He proposes two complementary pathways, reason and intuition.
So again, it's not this either.
Exactly.
It's about integrating both.
He saw both as valuable tools in our quest for understanding the ultimate reality. And this integrated approach, this interplay of reason and intuition, shapes his view of causality as well. Okay.
He rejects the conventional understanding of cause and effect, arguing instead that the true order of things is preordained by God.
Okay, so in this view, human actions become part of the divine plan.
Yes.
But wait, hold on. Doesn't that contradict the idea of free will?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And Ghazali delves into the complexities of free will with incredible nuance.
Okay.
He explains that, yes, human actions are determined in the sense that they fit within God's grand design.
Okay.
But they are not predetermined in the sense that we are forced or coerced into making them.
So we have a role to play.
Yes.
We actively participate in shaping our own destiny, even within the framework of God's will.
Precisely. He distinguishes between kasb, which refers to the acquisition or ownership of our actions,
Okay.
and jab, which means compulsion or coercion.
Okay.
He argues that, yes, while our actions are ultimately part of God's plan, we still have the capacity to choose, to make decisions, and to own the consequences of those decisions.
So we're not just puppets on a string. Exactly, and to clarify this concept, he uses this brilliant analogy. A pen writing on a tablet.
Okay.
The pen, he says, represents human will, the capacity to choose and to act. The pen can move and write, but it's ultimately guided by the hand that holds it, representing the divine will.
I love that. That's such a vivid image.
Yeah.
So it's not that we're mindless automatons.
Right.
We have the capacity to choose.
Yeah.
But our choices are always informed and influenced by a higher power.
Exactly. And this delicate balance between human agency and divine will is one of the most thought-provoking aspects of his thought.
It is. It makes you think about how we understand our place in the universe, how we approach our responsibilities, and even, how we view education.
Oh, interesting.
Because he considered education to be fundamental.
He did. He saw it as a sacred trust, a responsibility bestowed upon parents and teachers to nurture the next generation.
He didn't just talk about it generally. He provided comprehensive guidelines
on
child education, covering everything from moral development to intellectual curiosity.
So he really thought this through.
He did.
He considered education to be a critical element in the development of a just and flourishing society.
So it was this holistic approach, nurturing not just the mind, but also the heart
Exactly.
and the spirit, shaping the entire human being.
Alongside moral development, he also stressed the importance of cultivating intellectual curiosity.
Okay.
He encouraged students to ask questions, think critically, engage in lively debate.
I bet he was a great teacher.
He saw learning as an active discovery, not passive absorption. He firmly believed in the power of education to awaken the fitra, the innate human disposition towards goodness and truth.
So it's about nurturing our souls and guiding us towards our true purpose.
Exactly. Ghazali saw education as a lifelong process of self-discovery and spiritual growth.
Wow, we've covered a lot already.
We have
Exploring his spiritual journey, his critique of philosophy, his understanding of the human self, his views on knowledge, love, and education. It's remarkable how interconnected all these ideas are, how they weave together to form this cohesive and compelling vision of human existence.
He's not offering us easy answers or solutions, but rather he's inviting us to grapple with the complexities of life, to question our assumptions, and to ultimately find our way back to the source of all truth and goodness.
His work is this treasure trove of wisdom and insight, offering guidance for not only the challenges of his time, but also the complexities of our modern world.
And it's incredible to think that these ideas, written centuries ago, still hold so much relevance for us today, especially when we consider, the historical context that shaped his intellectual development.
Right.
And remember, he lived during this period of intense cultural and intellectual exchange, particularly in the wake of the Islamic Golden Age.
Right, the Islamic Golden Age. That was this incredible period
Yes.
of scientific, philosophical, artistic flourishing.
It's fascinating to think about how that vibrant intellectual atmosphere atmosphere influenced Ghazali.
It really is.
It was like a melting pot of ideas.
Wow.
You had scholars from all these different backgrounds, Persian, Arab, Greek, Indian.
Hmm.
They were translating texts, engaging in debates, pushing the boundaries of knowledge in fields like mathematics, astronomy, medicine, philosophy, theology.
So he wasn't just responding to Islamic thought.
No.
He was engaging with a much broader intellectual tradition,
Right.
drawing on this wisdom from multiple sources.
Exactly. And one of the most significant influences during that time was the influx of Greek philosophy
Oh, okay.
into the Muslim world.
Interesting.
Thinkers like Aristotle, Plato, Plotinus
Mm-hmm.
were being translated into Arabic, studied extensively in these intellectual circles throughout the Islamic Empire.
So he was exposed to some of the most influential philosophical ideas from the
Yes.
Western tradition. So how did he respond to these ideas?
Well, he had a complex relationship with Greek philosophy. He recognized the value of logic and reason as tools for understanding the world. In fact, he was a master logician himself.
Wow.
But he argued that reason alone was insufficient for attaining true knowledge, particularly knowledge of the divine.
Right. Like he needed something more
Yes.
to transcend the limitations of just the rational mind.
Precisely. He believed that intuition and revelation played a crucial role in understanding the ultimate reality.
So it's like he saw reason and revelation as being complementary,
Exactly.
not contradictory.
Reason could help us understand the world around us, but revelation provides these insights into the nature of God
Oh,
and the spiritual realm.
this makes me think about his emphasis on Sufism, seeking knowledge through spiritual practice and direct experience
Absolutely.
of the divine.
He saw the Sufi path as a means of purifying the heart and attaining a state of spiritual enlightenment.
Okay.
This enlightenment, he believed, allowed one to perceive truths inaccessible to the rational mind alone.
So it's not just about reading books, engaging in these debates.
No.
It's about cultivating a certain inner state,
Yes,
a receptivity
that's a good word.
to divine wisdom.
And Sufis achieved this through practices like meditation, contemplation, the remembrance of God, helping them to quiet the mind,
Okay.
purify the heart, and cultivate a deeper awareness of the divine presence.
It's like they're training their spiritual muscles, developing that capacity to perceive this dimension of reality that's often hidden to those who just rely solely on their intellect.
Ghazali's integration of Sufism into mainstream Islamic thought was revolutionary.
It was.
I mean, before him, Sufism was often seen as separate, somewhat fringe.
Right, kind of mystical, esoteric.
Exactly, perhaps even rebellious in the eyes of some of the more orthodox scholars.
Mm-hmm.
But Ghazali saw the profound spiritual insights
Yeah.
that Sufism offered.
Okay.
And he recognized its potential for deepening and enriching Islamic practice.
So he bridged that gap between the intellectual and the experiential,
Yes.
between the outer forms of religious observance
Yeah.
and the inner transformation.
Exactly, and that's precisely what he did.
Wow.
He integrated those Sufi concepts, like the purification of the heart, remembrance of God, the experience of divine love, into a more mainstream Islamic framework. This integration had a profound impact on the development of Islamic spirituality, theology, and ethics.
It helped pave the way for the flourishing of Sufi poetry, literature, and music.
Absolutely. The beauty and depth of Sufi poetry and music are a testament to the power of this mystical tradition.
It speaks to the universality of these spiritual experiences
Yes.
that transcend boundaries of language, of culture, even religion.
It's those universal concerns, the exploration of the human soul and our relationship with the divine, that make Ghazali's work so enduringly relevant.
And speaking of enduring relevance, one of the things that I find so fascinating about Ghazali is his nuanced understanding of the human self.
Yeah.
He doesn't shy away from the complexity of our inner world.
No, he doesn't.
And he delves into this messy, contradictory,
Yeah.
often paradoxical nature of being human.
Right. He recognizes that constant struggle within us, the interplay between our higher aspirations and our baser instincts.
Between our rational faculties and our animalistic desires.
It's like he's saying, look, we're all works in progress.
Right.
We have this capacity for great love, compassion, wisdom, but we also have these shadow sides, impulses that can lead us astray.
And he provides this framework for understanding this inner struggle
Yes.
through his analysis of the nafs,
Right.
which we talked about earlier, identifying those different states,
Different states of the nafs.
each representing a different stage of spiritual development.
He starts at the nafs al-amara,
Right.
the soul that commands to evil,
Mm.
the part of us that's driven by primal instincts and desires.
Right, that just wants to satisfy its desires without regard for ethical considerations
Exactly.
or spiritual consequences.
It's that voice that whispers, do what feels good right now,
Right.
regardless of who gets hurt or the long-term consequences.
And it's a powerful voice, the voice of our ego. It is.
The animalistic nature.
And it takes conscious effort and spiritual discipline to overcome its influence.
Absolutely. So how do we move beyond this state of the nafs? How do we cultivate our higher selves?
Well, he outlines a path of spiritual development,
Okay.
a journey of refining the nafs through various practices and disciplines. He describes the nafs al-lawama, the self-reproaching soul,
Yeah.
representing a step forward in our spiritual evolution.
So this is the part that feels that remorse
Yes,
when we've acted unethically, right?
exactly. It's the voice of conscience,
Yeah.
the inner critic that reminds us of our higher values and aspirations.
So we're using that awareness of our imperfections
Yes.
as motivation for growth,
Exactly.
transformation.
And this self-awareness, this willingness to confront our shadow sides,
Right.
is essential for spiritual progress. It's the first step in breaking free from that grip of the ego,
Right.
moving towards a state of greater harmony and balance within ourselves.
But it doesn't end there, right?
No, there are higher states of the nafs.
He speaks of the nafs amutmana, the soul at peace.
Okay.
This represents a state of tranquility, contentment, and surrender to the divine will.
So this is the state that's free from the turbulence of ego and desire.
It is.
A state of inner harmony,
Yes.
where we're aligned with our true nature and connected to the divine source.
That's it.
It sounds incredibly peaceful and fulfilling, but also incredibly difficult to attain.
It does.
Like a lifetime of spiritual practice.
But Ghazali believed that this journey of refining the nafs is ultimately the most meaningful endeavor we can undertake. He saw it as the path to true happiness, fulfillment, and liberation.
And it's this understanding of the nafs, this inner struggle between our higher and lower selves, that informs his approach to ethics.
Exactly.
So true morality isn't just about following the rules.
No.
It's about an inner transformation.
It is.
Refining the self.
Yes.
Aligning our action.
With our highest aspiration.
Right. Cultivating virtues like compassion, generosity, honesty, justice.
Not because we're told to,
Right.
but because they flow naturally from a purified heart, a soul in harmony with the divine will.
And this brings us back to that integration of knowledge and love.
Yes.
True knowledge leads to love.
And love, in turn, leads to right action.
So knowledge without love is sterile, and love without knowledge is blind.
You got it.
Ghazali believed that true knowledge, particularly in knowledge of God, ignites this fire in the heart.
Yes, this yearning for closeness to the divine, this longing to experience the reality beyond the veil of the senses.
It's like falling in love with truth.
Yeah.
And that love compels you to live a life worthy of that truth.
Right.
To reflect the beauty, the goodness, the wisdom that you've encountered.
He believed that this love, this connection to the divine, is the source of all true happiness and fulfillment.
Which brings us to his understanding of reality.
Right.
We talked about this earlier,
Yes.
about how he distinguishes between the seen world and the unseen world.
That the physical world,
Yeah.
the world we experience with our senses, is merely a shadow or a symbol of a higher transcendental reality.
It's like that allegory of the cave in Plato's Republic,
Exactly.
where those shadows on the wall
Yes.
are just representations of a more real world outside.
Yes, he uses the analogy of a mirror,
Yeah.
saying just as a mirror reflects an image, the physical world reflects the attributes of God.
So we need to cultivate the eyes to see it,
We do.
to perceive the spiritual dimension.
He believed both reason and intuition come into play here.
Okay.
Reason helps us to decipher the signs, to understand the order and beauty of creation,
Right.
but intuition allows us to perceive the divine presence within and beyond the physical world.
So he was a true mystic,
He was.
but also this rigorous logician.
This combination of intellectual depth and spiritual insight makes his work so compelling.
It does. And he didn't shy away from those big questions like the problem of free will and determinism.
He grappled with that apparent paradox of human freedom
Right.
within a divinely ordained universe.
How can our actions be truly free if God already knows?
Exactly.
How can we reconcile divine omniscience with human agency?
He did so by rejecting the conventional understanding of cause and effect,
Right.
arguing that this linear chain of causality that we perceive in the physical world is ultimately grounded in the will of God.
So God is the ultimate cause.
Exactly.
The first cause, the unmoved mover.
And human actions, while seemingly independent, are ultimately part of this grand cosmic design.
But that doesn't mean we're just puppets on a string.
It doesn't.
We still have that capacity to choose, to act, to shape our own destiny.
Exactly. Ghazali emphasizes that God's knowledge of our future actions doesn't negate our freedom, but rather it encompasses it within this eternal, all-encompassing knowledge.
So God sees the tapestry of our lives from beginning to end.
Yeah.
But we're still the ones weaving the threads.
Beautiful analogy.
We have a role to play in this grand cosmic drama.
We do.
Our choices have meaning, significance.
Oh, we're not operating in a vacuum. Our actions are part of a larger web of interconnectedness. This divine plan that unfolds according to God's wisdom and will.
So it frees us from that illusion of complete control.
It does.
But acknowledges the weight of our choices.
It does.
The responsibility that comes with free will.
Yes, and it leads us to this concept of rida,
Okay.
often translated as acceptance or contentment with God's will.
So it's about cultivating this inner peace and acceptance.
Exactly. Ghazali emphasizes that true happiness and fulfillment lie not in bending the universe to our will,
Right.
but in aligning our will with the will of God.
It sounds very liberating,
It is.
but also a bit daunting.
It can be.
How do we reconcile this with our own desires and aspirations?
That's where the practice of tazkiyah comes in.
Okay.
Tazkiyah refers to the purification of the soul.
Right.
Involves cultivating self-awareness, confronting our egoistic tendencies,
Okay.
aligning our thoughts, emotions, and actions with divine principles.
It's about stripping away those layers of ego and attachment. It is. That cloud our judgment.
Yes.
Obscure our true nature.
And it involves engaging in practices that help to refine our character,
Right.
strengthen our connection to God, develop a deeper understanding of His will.
So, like prayer, fasting, meditation.
Yes. Acts of service.
This reminds me of his emphasis on the importance of love.
Yes.
Because if we truly love God,
Yeah.
we're going to come to desire what he desires for us.
You're absolutely right. He sees love as the driving force behind all spiritual progress. He goes so far as to say that love is the essence of religion, the foundation of all moral and ethical behavior.
So it's not enough to just follow the rules.
Not at all.
We need to cultivate that heart filled with love.
Yes, a heart that resonates with those divine attributes of compassion, mercy, and justice.
Ghazali believed that love is the most powerful, motivating force
In the universe.
in the universe. Wow.
It compels us to seek knowledge, to strive for excellence, to act in accordance with the divine will.
And through cultivating this love, purifying our hearts,
Yes.
refining our character, we come to experience true happiness and fulfillment,
Yes.
aligning ourselves with the divine plan.
It's a beautiful and inspiring vision of human potential.
It is.
A vision that sees the challenges and complexities of life not as obstacles,
Right.
but as opportunities for growth, transformation, and a deeper connection to the source of all being.
This deep dive into Ghazali's thought has been so enlightening.
It has.
We've explored his spiritual journey,
His philosophical ideas,
his understanding of human nature.
his insights into the nature of reality.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
There's still so much to explore.
Absolutely. His works are like this vast ocean of wisdom, offering these endless depths to plumb.
With insights just as relevant today as they were centuries ago.
They are.
Insights that can guide us towards a more meaningful, fulfilling, and spiritually grounded life.
It's remarkable how he wove all these different threads together from all these various intellectual and spiritual traditions.
Yeah.
Islamic law, theology, philosophy, Sufism. He created this intricate tapestry of thought.
I mean, it's really incredible to think that someone writing in the 11th century
I know.
could speak so directly to our modern concerns.
I agree.
It just shows you the enduring power of these ideas, his
Yeah.
ability to grapple with, these timeless questions
Yeah.
of the human condition, a relationship with the divine.
Yeah, and he wasn't just the scholar cloistered away in an ivory tower. He
Wow.
was deeply engaged with the world. He was a
Right.
teacher, a judge, a spiritual guide.
Mm.
And his writings reflect this practicality.
Okay.
He wasn't just interested in abstract philosophical debates.
Right.
He wanted to give people tools for living a more ethical, meaningful, and spiritually grounded life.
So how did his ideas impact the world around him? What was his legacy?
I mean, his impact on Islamic thought was profound. He is considered one of the most influential figures in the history of Islamic theology and philosophy,
Hmm.
and his writings have been studied and debated for centuries.
So what were some of the key ways in which he influenced Islamic thought?
Well, as we discussed earlier, one of his most significant contributions was this synthesis of Islamic law and theology with Sufism.
Right, so he took this mystical tradition,
Yes.
often viewed with suspicion.
Yes, by the more orthodox scholars.
Right, and he integrates it into the mainstream.
Exactly, showing how spiritual practice, purification of the heart, cultivation of love for God were not separate from Islamic law and theology,
Hmm.
but essential components of a truly holistic understanding of the faith.
He bridged that gap, right, between the intellectual and the experiential.
He did.
The outer forms of religious observance
Yes.
and that inner transformation of the heart.
And this integration had a profound impact on the development of Islamic spirituality and paved the way for the flourishing of Sufi poetry, literature, and music.
And it's amazing how these ideas continue to influence art and culture and spirituality all these centuries after his death.
I know, it's incredible.
But his influence wasn't limited to just the Islamic world, was it?
No, not at all. I mean, his works were translated into Latin and other European languages during the Middle Ages, and they had a significant impact on Christian and Jewish thinkers as well.
Wow.
I mean, figures like Thomas Aquinas
Okay.
and Maimonides were familiar with his writings and engaged with his ideas.
So he was part of this broader intellectual exchange between the Islamic world and Europe.
He was. It was a period of cross-cultural fertilization with ideas flowing back and forth between East and West.
It's inspiring to think about how these ideas can transcend geographical boundaries and cultural differences.
I agree. It really speaks to the universality of certain human questions.
Yeah.
Questions about the meaning of life, the nature of good and evil, our relationship to something greater than ourselves.
Absolutely, and it's these timeless questions that Ghazali grapples with in his writing.
Yes.
He gives us not just a window into his own time and culture,
Right.
but also a mirror
Yeah,
in which we can see ourselves reflected.
And his struggles, his insights, his yearning for truth and meaning, those are all things that resonate across cultures and time periods.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Ghazali's thought,
Yes.
what are some of the key takeaways for our listeners today? What can we, as modern individuals grappling with the complexities of the 21st century, learn from this 11th century thinker?
Well, I think one of the most important lessons we can glean from Ghazali is the importance of balance.
Okay.
He emphasized this need to cultivate both our intellectual and spiritual capacities.
Right, to integrate reason and intuition, balance those worldly responsibilities with our spiritual aspirations.
Exactly. That's so relevant for us today.
Yeah.
Living in this world that often feels so out of balance.
Right.
We're bombarded with information, technologies advancing at an unprecedented pace.
It's easy to get swept away
It is.
in this current of external demands and distractions.
And Ghazali reminds us to slow down, to turn inward, to cultivate that inner space of stillness and reflection, showing us that true knowledge isn't just about accumulating information,
Right.
but about deepening our understanding of ourselves, the world around us, and our relationship with the divine.
And he also reminds us of the importance of love.
Yes.
Not just romantic love, but that, deep,
Right.
all-encompassing love for God.
That motivates us to live this life of purpose and meaning and service.
He saw love as this driving force behind all spiritual growth, moral action, and true happiness.
He did.
Believing that when our hearts are aligned with love, our actions naturally flow in alignment with the divine will.
What a beautiful and inspiring message.
It
It's
is.
as relevant today as it was centuries ago.
As we navigate the complexities of our modern world, let's remember Ghazali's call to cultivate balance, seek knowledge with a loving heart, and strive to align our will with the divine will.
And may his words continue to inspire us on our own journeys of self-discovery, spiritual growth, and the pursuit of a life filled with meaning and purpose.
Thank you for joining us on this incredible deep dive into the thought of Imam al-Ghazali. Until next time.